Welcome to the Shipping Podcast, where I meet interesting maritime professionals sharing their passion for the shipping industry and their everyday job. I am your host. My name is Lena Gothberg. Hello, Shipping Podcast listeners. Welcome to the 91st episode of the Shipping Podcast. Early May, I was invited to the Opening Oceans conference in Copenhagen. That conference is a new initiative from Shipping to help maritime and ocean industry players realize the unique business potential of the ocean space. I spent 2 days in Copenhagen, just wandering around, meeting new people, and trying to get the most interesting ones on tape for you. I can warn you already now. This is a digital episode. It speaks to my digital heart, and it's like music in my ears. I will be introducing you to Lasse Kristoffersen. He started in Torvald Klaveness in 2007, heading up the business unit Klaveness Maritime Logistics. And in 2011, he was appointed the new Chief Executive Officer for Torvald Klaveness and became the first company CEO from outside the Klaveness family. I will not keep you from listening to Lasse. He's got so many great things to say. So, this is our chat. Welcome to the Shipping Podcast. Could you please introduce yourself?
My name is Lasse Kristoffersen. I'm the CEO of Torvald Klaveness, living in Oslo in Norway.
And what is your background?
My background is I grew up in Bergen, outside Bergen, on the west coast of Norway. Then I did my studies, technical studies in Trondheim, Master of Science in Naval Architecture. And then I've been working for 11 years with a Norwegian company called DNV, now DNV GL, and for the last close to 11 years with the Torvald Klaveness.
And Klaveness, what kind of shipping company is that?
We're a traditional Norwegian shipping company, meaning that we're privately owned, been around for 70 years and been involved in all different kind of businesses. But we're most known as a big player in the dry bulk markets. So altogether we control a fleet of 150 vessels, most of them standard dry bulk vessels, some container vessels. We have some specialized vessels which we call combination carriers. And then we have now recently also developed a business within digital services.
How did you come in contact with shipping? Why did you choose shipping as an occupation?
Well, it was in a way natural. I grew up on the west coast of Norway, close to the sea. I had my first boat when I was 10 years old, I guess. So the sea has always been something that has been close to where I grew up. And then, of course, moving on from there, it's a lot of coincidences of where you end up studying. But I deliberately applied for the naval architecture in the Technical University in Norway and was accepted. And from there on, it's been a life within the maritime and partly also the oil and gas, but largely maritime industry.
So what are the biggest differences that you can see, the changes in the industry? You've been around for 20 odd years or something.
Yeah. Well, I think, at least in my view, the two biggest differences are, well, there is a big difference basically on how value is created in our industry. If you go back 10, 20, 30 years, it was all about owning vessels, controlling vessels, and you can differentiate yourselves based on the vessels you had and the vessels you owned. That is not possible anymore. Basically, the world is full of ships, full of ship owners. So the ship itself is not where you can differentiate and where you can create value. Today, we believe it's all about energy. How can you preserve energy and how can you take a lead in the transition from a non-fossil future? And how can you use technology, in particular digital technology, to differentiate yourselves? So if you go 20 years back, a lot of the innovation was around the vessel itself. Now, a lot of the innovation is how you put that vessel into a system and call it business models.
So could you develop a little bit about what you have been doing now with your new digital?
Yeah, we started back in 2014. We realized that there was a technology revolution going on around us, but we had really not taken that into account in shipping. So when we started to look at it in 2014, there was nobody really in shipping talking about digital. So what we did was that we looked outside shipping. First thing we did, we looked at some consultants, didn't help much, but then we decided to take a deep look into the finance industry, which had been well ahead of our industry. Through some contacts, we got in touch eventually with a team that has just sold their business. 4 young, extremely talented guys, started it when they were students, computer science students. And we took the 4 of them into our company and said, please act as if you're a startup and tell us how to work and where the opportunity lies in technology. And then for the first year or 2, there was a lot of experiments. We tried a lot of stuff. A lot of it didn't work. And then we went into a phase in, let's say, 2015, where we had more like different projects that we tried out. Some of them succeeded, and as of last year, we set that up as a separate business, where they're now running different products to customers. And we had this year the first paying customer on one of their digital services, which is, of course, is a big milestone. So the whole intention of our investment and commitment into digital has been, how can we use technology to serve our customers better, solve new pain points, and hopefully through that also generate new revenue to our company.
So has it had any other impact? I mean, do you now see young people queuing up to work with you?
I would love to say yes, and of course we see that to a large extent, but I think if you look at who has left the company and their competence profile over the last 3-4 years, and those who have joined, you will see quite a big difference. Those who have left are probably more traditional, hands-on, experience-based people from shipping, while all of those we have recruited have computer science background, data scientist background, they have PhDs in mathematics and statistics. Those kind of competencies are really now entering the scene. And we are in the midst of a big shift from being analog inside to become digital inside as a company. It's no longer good enough to guess and use your gut feeling only. You need to use data and analytics to make better decisions. And that is, of course, one of the biggest challenges a company like ourselves and all companies and all industries, I guess, is facing, is how do we fast enough adapt to this new way of running our company? Faster, more agile, more data-driven, more analytics-driven. One way to do it is, of course, as I started off with, removing the old competence and just adding new young people. But then basically you're just like any other company. You need to make sure you also keep the competence you have built for 70 years in the company. So what we have decided is that we need to go through a major retraining over all of our staff in data and analytics. And we are launching that this year. We're now developing the program. And as of August this year, all employees in Klaveness will have to go back to school within Klaveness and spend quite some efforts into retraining themselves into data, analytics, and digital. And we will make the program, and we will make teachers available, programs available, and everything. But of course, it will take some effort. So at least we have decided that we will give everybody a chance to show and connect to a new way of working, and hopefully. At least most of our people will grab that chance and re-educate themselves.
And how has that been received from the staff?
I would say in different ways. We are talking about this pyramid in a way, where all the way on the bottom you have those who fear this, all the way up to the top, those who have basically been there for a long time, and they don't really need much help to move on. I mean, those who are data scientists, they find their own path and their own retraining. So the whole issue is, how do we move, let's say, the 70% who still consider this a challenge or have a fear around it, into somebody who embrace it and would like to run with it. So I think in that bracket of people, a lot of them still are uncertain, what is this? And I think it's fear based on lack of knowledge, not lack of interest. So the first thing we have to do is to of course, explain why are we doing it and what are we doing. And then secondly, help everybody to start, taking small steps first. And that's why we are engaging with psychologists and special, people with pedagogic training, just to help the people to get started and come beyond this level of fear and where you're basically scared of, am I really part of the future? And what we have guaranteed is that everybody who makes the efforts will be part of the future. And then, of course, if you're not willing to develop and reinvest, it's more challenging to have a job in our company in the future.
Do you see new jobs going forward? I mean, a lot of people say, oh, old jobs will disappear and it's scary and so on. And my view is that we need to see if there are new jobs that we can be in. I mean, we want to influence what they look like.
There will be a lot of new jobs, but if you look today on the positions we have in the company today and that we had 30 or 50 years ago, I mean, it's a big change. If you look at the number of people we have on our vessels, it's a big change. This is a constant evolution. And we as humans have proven in generations that we are very good in developing technology, using it for the common best, and based on that, new needs arise. So I'm not at all worried that technology will take over for the human and there will be no jobs left. But there are very different jobs left. So basically where a machine can do a better job than a human, eventually it will. So then you can either fight that and hope for that you can keep your job for a long time, or you could realize that and see, okay, I have to get on the other side of that equation and being part of those who create those systems, create those machines, create those algorithms. So that's what we see in our company. We recruit a lot of people, but they are much more, some of them are computer scientists, but a lot of them are more data-driven analytical people. Meaning that if you were a charterer 10, 15 years back, it was all about relations and experience. And the way you were trained were basically to sit on the nap of your predecessor and learn everything he or she could. Now, actually, it's the opposite way around. Now, the senior have to learn from the new guy that came in. And how do I use technology? How do I use social media? How do I use these different type of networks to do my job better? So I'm not scared that jobs will disappear as a total, but they will change, some of them dramatically, and some have already changed. So as long as you're willing to take your experience and add up to that more capabilities in digital and data, you shouldn't be afraid of your job. If you're not, I more or less can convince you that certainly in Klaveness that we have very few jobs left in 10 years where you're not using technology actively in your day-to-day work.
So how do you see the future for shipping in general? I
think it's unbelievable exciting times. Not that much because of markets. I mean, markets go up and down, but I think we're in the midst of a change that's never been seen before. Within a few years, we need to, become carbon neutral in shipping. Shipping, I mean, the whole production system of the world has been built around vessels going around the world and allowing part of the production chain in China and another one in Europe and the last one in US. And that system has served the world extremely well for a long time. But we built that system in a time where nobody really thought about climate and certainly not about the energy costs. Now that is changing. And we have to rethink that whole system of how we set up transportation systems. We need to come up with complete new technology, complete new energy sources, complete new business models. And on top of that, digital will drive that transition much quicker and into different places than what we did previously. So I think if you look on what's going, I mean, if you're 25 years old today, you have 50 years of work ahead of you. When you are finished working, you have been through the biggest transition in energy the world have ever seen, biggest transition in technology the world in our business have ever seen. So it's fantastically exciting times for those who are on the right side of the story and believe that the future is something you shape, not something you just wait for.
Most ship owners they own 10 ships or so.
Yeah, or less even, yeah.
Yeah, or less. The average, I think, is 10. We only hear about the big ones. So,
yes.
So, I mean, a smaller ship owner, it's harder, I think, to maybe change everything at the same time.
Yes, of course, and that's partly the reason why you have seen consolidation in other industries, because you need bigger units to be able to take these massive leaps in research, development, and innovation. Having said that, I think probably the role that will change the least is the role of just owning a vessel. Basically, that's a question of access to capital and risk willingness from the owning side. And you have to remember that very few of these smaller owners, as you talk about, really provides end service to a customer. Most of them are putting the vessels out on time charter or into pools or into operators, so they operate on their behalf. And that's really where the big change will be. So as I said, how you own the vessel, and the vessel as a system will of course go through a change as well, but the biggest change will be how we put these assets into systems. So I think the biggest changes will be more around operators, service providers, logistics providers and all this, rather than maybe the small ship owner itself. And actually I think the small ship owner has proven really their ability to withstand the cyclicality of shipping, because that's the key. That is to be able to invest when things are cheap and put aside money when markets are high. And that's something that private owners have proven to be much better at than public companies, where that is less easy to have as a logic. So in terms of ship owning, I'm not sure that we will see a huge consolidation of big owners, because that's not really what the technology is about. But on the other side of that, one of the big challenges we have in shipping is that we have no Ford or General Motors or Toyota that can spend 10 years and $10 billion on creating a new platform for electric vehicles. I mean, no owner is big enough to do that on their own. So for us to succeed in this, we need much more networks and formal and informal corporations, because even if you had 100 vessels or if you have 1,000 vessels, still you're small to solve the big issue of energy and digital.
How can the shipping industry become more visible? We are often looked upon as the hidden industry. No one knows about us.
Well, first of all, these discussions, of course, are all over the place in our industry. And I think, to be honest, a lot of industries have the same discussions. I mean, nobody feel they get the blame and the glory they deserve. And maybe we are in a special situation. But I think most of the reason is that we have designed to be so. If you could go 5, 10, 20 years back, most owners' standard answer was no comment if they were asked on things. We were hiding ownership structures, and basically we've been an industry that did not like transparency, and where very few voices have raised their opinion and taken a stand. That, I hope, is about to change now. And certainly we have seen that in the climate discussion now in IMO, where the industry was itself were blamed to be, the slow, but really the ones driving the discussion. And those who really pushed for the strategy that was eventually passed was really the International Chamber of Shipping and other shipping organizations. So I think just over the last few years, the industry has changed from thinking of this as something that we should avoid to something to think of this as an opportunity, and where we have to take a stand to decide our own destiny. So at least I hope that's the start of an industry where we speak up and where we make the right decisions, and where people are willing to take a stand on things that are fundamentally right. And I think we have plenty of issues. We have ballast water, we have climate, we have scrapping, we have many other things that where we really need to do the right thing and not only wait for
we are competing with every other industry for the brightest minds.
Yes, and I think complaining is certainly not the way to go. But of course, it's about creating exciting environments where young people can strive and survive, and creating space for people to, as we have said in our company, we need to act like a startup. For us to attract the best people and have them to develop the most interesting business, they need to feel that they have the freedom to act as if they were starting their own business. And that's the good thing with, at least in the areas we are, with the next generation and the young guys, is that they are really keen on creating something. They are really keen on doing the right thing. And if we give them enough space, I think they will help our industry to take the right choices and do the bold moves.
Who would you be interested in listening to if you were listening to the Shipping Podcast? Who do you think I should meet the next?
Oh, that's a good question. I think, one guy I listened to, I met through at the Maersk Tankers here in Copenhagen, was the founder of Cargometrics. One of the first one who really looked into how can we use data to create insights, and through that, improve the way we trade in shipping. I think he had a complete new eyes on the industry. And then, of course, I think also that that there are bright minds in many other shipping companies, and I think, in particular, in Maersk, they've been good at looking at how you can use technology to improve their internal value chain, where I think the industry has a lot to learn. But I must admit that I listen more to people also in the industry than inside the industry on what we should do to create our own future.
I think you're onto something there. Thank you very much for taking the time to speak to me.
It was a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Lasse. I don't think that I have heard any other maritime company be so outspoken about their digital transformation as you were. Best of luck. I will be watching you from a distance. I would like to give a shout out to Captain Abdullah Darwish Al-Hayas. I hope I pronounce his name correctly. He's the Director of Maritime Transport Affairs in Abu Dhabi, in United Arab Emirates. He wrote to me. He said, "Thank you very much for the efforts made on the shipping podcast. I came to know your podcast channel 3 months ago. I'm commuting 3 days a week from Dubai to my office in Abu Dhabi at the Federal Transport Authority, which takes me 1.5 hours to reach. And I spend my time listening to your episodes. Ooh, oh my God. And I feel that you are sitting next to me with your guest in the car, which make me feel my journey is short and pleasant. Thank you, Captain Abdullah. This really makes my heart melt and gives me courage to go on." He says, "You are touching very interesting topics with your guests. It's knowledge sharing and bringing the listeners up to date with the latest in the maritime industry. Thank you again, and looking forward to listening to more of your episodes." This made my day. This is what I live for. I would like more feedback, because if you don't give me feedback, I cannot improve. All of you do not have to say that this is the best thing since sliced bread, but I would like to have that discussion. I would like us to share knowledge, and I would like us to do this together. So comment on this episode. Let us all know what you think about the changes that Klaveness are doing. And what do you think about the podcast? Are you prepared to share in your own social media? Or do you keep it to yourself? This platform is not made for keeping it to yourself. It's made for sharing. I will leave you with this. And my next guest from the Opening Oceans conference is equally exciting, I promise you. So, from me to you, until the next time, over and out. Thank you for listening to the Shipping Podcast. Don't forget to tell everyone that you meet that there is a shipping podcast available and that they should download it and listen to the maritime professionals who are sharing their passion for the shipping industry.